Let's get real. How many times have you felt like something was off in a relationship, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it? Maybe he seemed too perfect, too soon, or maybe his words were sweet, but his actions didn't quite line up. If you've ever walked away from a situation thinking, "Was it me? Did I overreact?" You're not alone. Women everywhere are navigating the subtle art of spotting manipulation. And let me tell you, being a high-value woman isn't just about self-worth. It's about knowing how to see through the games before they even begin. So here's the truth. Manipulation isn't always obvious. It's rarely a flashing neon sign saying, "You're being controlled." Instead, it's woven into small, calculated actions, sometimes disguised as love, care, or even flattery. Sounds terrifying, right? But don't worry, this isn't about living in fear or questioning everyone's intentions. This is about empowerment, developing razor-sharp intuition, setting boundaries like a boss, and walking away when someone disrespects your worth. Here's what we'll explore. What does manipulation actually look like? How can you spot it in its earliest stages? And most importantly, how can you avoid falling into its trap? By the end of this video, you won't just be able to protect yourself. You'll radiate the kind of confidence that makes manipulators run the other way. Let me ask you this. What would it feel like to never second-guess yourself in a relationship again, to spot red flags immediately, trust your gut, and walk away without looking back? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share could completely transform the way you navigate love, relationships, and even life itself. Let's dive into the first step, understanding what manipulation actually looks like. 1. Understand what manipulation looks like. Manipulation is a word that carries a heavy weight, doesn't it? It conjures up images of subtle deceit, quiet control, and emotional games that leave you questioning everything. But here's the thing. Manipulation rarely feels obvious when it's happening. It's often cloaked in kindness, wrapped in charm, and delivered with a smile. And before you know it, you're tangled in a web of doubt, second-guessing your own instincts. The first step to breaking free is understanding what manipulation looks like so you can recognize it the moment it begins. Let's talk about gaslighting. This is one of the most insidious forms of manipulation because it messes with your perception of reality. Picture this. You bring up a concern, a behavior, or a comment that rubbed you the wrong way, and instead of addressing your feelings, he turns the situation around. Suddenly, it's not about what he said or did. It's about how sensitive you are or how you're overreacting. You start questioning yourself. Did I imagine it? Am I being unfair? That's exactly what gaslighting is designed to do. It makes you doubt your judgment, your memory, and even your emotions. Another common tactic is guilt tripping. It's a subtle but powerful tool manipulators use to make you feel bad for asserting your boundaries. For example, you might say no to something, and he responds with, "Wow, I guess you don't care about me as much as I thought," or "I'm just trying my best, but clearly it's not enough for you." These statements are designed to shift the focus from the boundary you set to his feelings. And let's be honest, guilt can be a strong motivator. You might cave just to avoid feeling like the bad guy, even when you know you're standing up for yourself. And then there's love bombing. If you've ever been swept off your feet by a man who seemed to know exactly what you wanted to hear and gave it to you tenfold, you might have experienced this. It feels intoxicating at first. Constant compliments, grand gestures, endless attention. You feel seen, adored, cherished. But love bombing isn't about love. It's about control. It's designed to make you dependent on that attention, to lower your guard, and to make you believe he's perfect. And once you're hooked, the dynamic changes. The affection might fade, the control might tighten, and you're left wondering where the man you fell for has gone. Manipulation doesn't stop there. It also thrives in the form of subtle, repeated patterns. A high-value woman, one rooted in her worth and guided by her instincts, knows how to pick up on these patterns early. Manipulation often isn't a single event. It's a series of small, calculated moves that create a larger picture. A comment here, a dismissive tone there, an action that contradicts words. Separately, they might not seem like much. Together, they paint a story. This is why recognizing manipulation isn't about paranoia or seeing red flags in every interaction. It's about awareness. It's about observing behaviors and noticing when something feels off. Does his charm feel like a performance? Do his words feel too rehearsed? Are you constantly questioning yourself after conversations with him? Manipulation thrives in confusion, but clarity is your greatest weapon. And this is where your intuition comes in. How often have you felt something wasn't quite right, only to brush it off as overthinking? Your intuition is your superpower. It's that quiet voice, that gut feeling that tells you when something doesn't sit well. A manipulator's greatest hope is that you ignore it, but a high-value woman listens to her instincts. She doesn't dismiss her feelings as irrational. She trusts herself enough to say, "Something about this doesn't feel right, and I'm going to honor that." This isn't about being guarded or shutting people out. It's about discernment, knowing the difference between genuine connection and strategic manipulation. It's about protecting your energy and refusing to let anyone shake your confidence. When you understand what manipulation looks like, you reclaim your power. You step into relationships with clarity, self-assurance, and a sense of control over your emotions. Manipulation can't thrive when faced with a woman who knows her worth. And this is where the philosophy of Stoic love comes into play. Stoicism teaches us to remain grounded, rational, and unaffected by external chaos. A Stoic woman doesn't let emotional games pull her into a spiral of self-doubt. She observes, she reflects, and she chooses her responses carefully. Love, in its truest form, isn't about control or confusion. It's about partnership, respect, and mutual growth. Stoic love is your guide to achieving that. So take a moment to reflect. Have you ever felt the sting of manipulation, the frustration of being misunderstood or controlled? What did it teach you? By understanding what manipulation looks like, you're arming yourself with knowledge that can transform your relationships, and this is only the beginning. With each layer we uncover, you'll feel more confident, more in control, and more aligned with your highest self. Because a high-value woman isn't just someone who knows her worth. She's someone who refuses to settle for anything less than authenticity. 2. Spotting red flags. Early. Have you ever felt an uneasy sense that something about a man's behavior wasn't quite right, but you couldn't put your finger on it? Like there was a little voice inside you whispering, "Pay attention, something's off here." That whisper is intuition, and it's one of the most powerful tools you have to spot red flags before they take root. A high-value woman doesn't ignore that whisper. She leans into it. Because the earlier you catch the signs of manipulation, the easier it is to protect yourself and walk away with your self-worth intact. So, what are these red flags? Let's start with one of the biggest: inconsistency. When a man's words don't align with his actions, take note. He might tell you how much he values honesty, yet you catch him in small lies. Or he might claim to want a serious relationship, but his behavior shows a lack of effort or commitment. These inconsistencies are not accidents, they're glimpses into his true character. A high-value woman doesn't brush them off. Instead, she asks herself, what does this pattern tell me about who he really is? Another major red flag is controlling behavior. At first, it might be subtle. He wants to know who you're texting or asks you to spend more time with him instead of your friends. Maybe he expresses jealousy when you talk about other men, framing it as a sign of how much he cares. But control doesn't come from love. It comes from insecurity and the need to dominate. If you find yourself feeling isolated, as though your world is shrinking to revolve around him, it's time to take a step back and ask, is this love or is this control? Emotional unavailability is another red flag that can easily be overlooked, especially when it's wrapped in charm. Imagine this. He's funny, charismatic, and seems to have it all together, but when it comes to deeper conversations about feelings, plans, or emotional connection, he deflects. Maybe he avoids vulnerability by turning everything into a joke, or he changes the subject when you bring up serious topics. While it's easy to rationalize this as him needing time, emotional unavailability often signals a lack of readiness for a true partnership. A high-value woman doesn't waste her energy trying to fix someone who isn't emotionally open. She protects her heart and moves on. And then there's breadcrumbing. Have you ever been in a situation where a man gives you just enough attention to keep you hooked but never enough to make you feel secure? He texts just enough to keep you wondering, makes plans only to cancel, or shows affection inconsistently. Breadcrumbing is manipulation designed to keep you in a state of confusion. It creates an emotional roller coaster, leaving you chasing after the highs while dreading the lows. Recognizing this pattern is key to breaking free from its hold, but spotting red flags isn't just about analyzing his behavior. It's about tuning into how you feel after spending time with him. Do you feel uplifted, secure, and valued, or do you feel drained, anxious, or unsure of where you stand? Your emotions are your internal compass, guiding you toward what's right and away from what's wrong. A high-value woman knows that if someone consistently makes her feel uneasy, that's all the clarity she needs. Now, let's not forget that manipulators are often skilled at masking these red flags, especially in the beginning stages of a relationship. This is where patience becomes your ally. Instead of rushing into emotional intimacy or making excuses for questionable behavior, take your time. Observe how he acts in different situations, how he treats others, and how he responds to boundaries. Does he listen and respect your needs, or does he try to push past them? Actions speak louder than words, and consistent actions speak the loudest of all. Here's something else to consider. A manipulator will often test your boundaries early on, subtly pushing to see how much he can get away with. Maybe it's a harmless joke at your expense, or pressuring you to change your plans to accommodate him. These small tests might seem insignificant in the moment, but they set the tone for how he'll treat you in the future. A high-value woman recognizes these tests for what they are and responds with firmness. She knows that saying no is not only her right, it's a reflection of her self-respect. Think of spotting red flags as building your emotional resilience. Every time you catch a red flag and trust yourself enough to act on it, you're strengthening your ability to navigate relationships with clarity and confidence. You're stepping into your power as a woman who knows her worth and refuses to settle for less. Now, before we move on to the next section, I want to ask you something. Have you ever ignored a red flag because you didn't want to overreact? If so, you're not alone. Many women fall into this trap, but here's the truth. Listening to your intuition is never an overreaction. It's an act of self-love. And speaking of self-love, if you're finding value in this conversation so far, I'd love for you to support this video. Like it, and leave a comment with the number 1 if you're feeling empowered by these insights. And don't forget to subscribe, because this journey of stepping into your high-value self is just getting started. There's so much more to uncover, and I can't wait to dive into it with you. 3. Learn how to manipulate as boundaries. Manipulators are masters at testing the waters. They don't launch into full-blown control from the start. Instead, they probe, they push, and they wait to see how you respond. Their tactics are subtle, often appearing harmless at first, but they're anything but innocent. If you know what to look for, you can spot these early tests and shut them down before they gain traction. A high-value woman isn't just confident, she's perceptive. She knows that manipulation thrives in small, unnoticed breaches of her boundaries, and she guards her emotional space fiercely. One of the most common ways manipulators test boundaries is through persistence. It might seem benign. He asks you to change your plans, insists on just one more drink, or nudges you to do something you're unsure about. If you say no and he keeps pushing, that's a red flag. A man who respects you will honor your boundaries the first time, but a manipulator sees your no as a challenge, an invitation to persuade you. His persistence isn't about charm, it's about control. And the moment you cave, he learns something important, that he can wear you down. Another tactic is creating a sense of dependency. It might start as him offering help. Maybe he insists on driving you everywhere or handling things you're perfectly capable of doing yourself. At first, it might feel like care, even chivalry, but over time, this pattern can evolve into you feeling like you need him. He subtly inserts himself into your life in ways that make his absence feel disruptive, and when you become reliant on him, even for small things, he gains leverage. A high-value woman sees through this. She values partnership, but she also fiercely protects her independence, both emotional and practical. Then there's the manipulation of emotions through the highs and lows of affection. This is where a man alternates between overwhelming you with love and withholding it to create insecurity. One day he's all over you, texting constantly, showering you with compliments, making you feel like the center of his universe. The next, he's distant, unresponsive, or even critical. This emotional roller coaster isn't an accident. It's deliberate. It's designed to keep you chasing the high, questioning what you did wrong, and working harder to win his affection. It's a tactic as old as time, and it's one that works unless you're wise to it. Manipulators also use humor as a tool to test boundaries. Have you ever had someone make a joke at your expense that didn't feel funny? Maybe he teased you about something personal, your appearance, your interests, or even your past. And when you called it out, he brushed it off with, "Relax, I'm just kidding." These so-called jokes aren't harmless. They're designed to gauge how far he can push you, how much discomfort you're willing to tolerate. A high-value woman doesn't laugh along to keep the peace. She calls it out and makes it clear that disrespect, even disguised as humor, won't be tolerated. Another subtle test is using vulnerability as a weapon. Manipulators know that emotional intimacy is powerful, and they exploit it. They might share a deeply personal story early on, something that tugs at your heartstrings and makes you feel connected. But this isn't genuine vulnerability, it's strategic. By opening up too soon, they create a false sense of intimacy, making you feel like you owe them the same level of openness. And once you share your own vulnerabilities, they might later use them against you. True vulnerability unfolds naturally over time. A high-value woman recognizes when someone is rushing the process for their own gain. Manipulators also thrive on blurring boundaries in communication. Have you ever had someone dominate a conversation, interrupt you constantly, or talk over you? These aren't just bad habits, they're habits of control. They send a message: your voice doesn't matter as much as mine. If you find yourself struggling to get a word in or feeling unheard, it's a sign that this person doesn't respect you as an equal. A high-value woman doesn't compete for attention in conversations. She recognizes her worth and expects the same level of respect she offers. What's crucial to understand is that these boundary tests aren't one-offs. their patterns. A single instance might not be cause for concern, but when you notice a consistent effort to push, prod, or pressure, it's time to reevaluate the dynamic. Manipulation isn't always obvious, but it leaves breadcrumbs, and when you're tuned in, you'll see them. A high-value woman doesn't just spot these tests, she responds to them with clarity and confidence. She doesn't get drawn into power struggles or feel the need to prove herself. Instead, she sets firm boundaries and enforces them unapologetically. She knows that saying no is an act of self-respect, not a rejection of someone else. And when someone refuses to honor her boundaries, she walks away, knowing that her peace of mind is worth more than any fleeting connection. So let's pause for a moment. Have you ever noticed someone testing your boundaries in subtle ways? Maybe it was persistence disguised as care, humor that felt more like a jab, or affection that came in confusing waves. How did you respond? Did you brush it off, or did you stand your ground? The beauty of learning to spot these tests is that you gain control over your emotional space. You decide who gets access to your energy and your heart. Manipulators thrive on people who second-guess themselves, but a high-value woman doesn't give them that power. She trusts her instincts, recognizes manipulation for what it is, and takes action to protect herself. And the more you practice this, the more confident you'll feel in your ability to navigate relationships with clarity and strength. Remember, your boundaries aren't just lines, they're a reflection of your worth, and no one has the right to cross them. Fourth, protecting your boundaries with confidence. Boundaries. They're more than just lines in the sand. They're the foundation of your self-respect and the key to healthy relationships. But let's be real. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially when someone pushes back. Maybe you worry about seeming too much or fear that standing firm might drive someone away. Here's the truth, though. A man who's worth your time won't be intimidated by your boundaries. In fact, he'll respect them, and he'll respect you even more for having them. So let's talk about how to protect your boundaries like the high-value woman you are. First, you need to set them with clarity. One of the biggest mistakes women make is being vague about their limits. For example, instead of saying, "I need time to myself on weekends," you might say, "I'm usually pretty busy on weekends." See the difference? The first statement is firm and direct, while the second leaves room for negotiation. Manipulators thrive on ambiguity, so the clearer you are, the less room they have to twist your words or test your patience. But setting boundaries is only half the battle. The real challenge is in enforcing them, especially when someone doesn't take them seriously. Let's say you've told him you're not available for late-night texts, but he keeps sending them anyway. A high-value woman doesn't ignore this behavior or let it slide. She addresses it head-on, saying something like, "I've already shared my boundary about late-night texts. If you can't respect that, I'll need to reevaluate our communication." Yes, it might feel uncomfortable in the moment, but standing firm shows that you value yourself enough to demand respect. Now, let's talk about one of the hardest parts of maintaining boundaries, the guilt that often comes with it. Society has conditioned women to be accommodating, to prioritize others' feelings over their own. So when you start saying no, you might feel a pang of guilt, like you're being selfish. But here's the truth. Saying no isn't selfish. It's necessary. Every time you honor your boundaries, you're sending yourself a powerful message. My needs matter. My peace matters. I matter. And let's not forget the art of saying no itself. How many times have you found yourself over-explaining or justifying your decision, only to feel frustrated afterward? A high-value woman knows she doesn't owe anyone a lengthy explanation. A simple, "No, that doesn't work for me," is more than enough. You don't have to soften your no or make it more palatable. A man who respects you will understand that no means no without needing an essay to back it up. Another powerful tool for protecting your boundaries is learning to recognize manipulation disguised as kindness. Maybe he says, "I was just trying to help," when he oversteps a boundary you've set. Or perhaps he frames his persistence as care, saying things like, "I only keep asking because I really like you." These tactics might sound sweet on the surface, but they're designed to wear you down. A high-value woman doesn't fall for these games. She sees through the facade and stands her ground, no matter how charming the delivery. One of the most beautiful things about protecting your boundaries is the confidence it builds over time. At first, it might feel daunting, especially if you're not used to standing firm. But with every boundary you set and enforce, you're teaching yourself that you're worthy of respect. And that confidence becomes magnetic. It radiates from you, making it clear to everyone you meet that you're not someone who tolerates disrespect or games. That's the power of living with intention and self-worth. Let's also talk about how protecting your boundaries ties into the philosophy of Stoic love. In Stoicism, emotions are not dismissed, but are instead managed with wisdom and clarity. A Stoic woman doesn't let guilt or fear dictate her decisions. She sets her boundaries not to control others, but to maintain her inner peace. Stoic love reminds us that true love is rooted in mutual respect and understanding, not in sacrificing your well-being for someone else's comfort. A man who truly values you will appreciate the strength it takes to uphold your boundaries, and he'll rise to meet them. Now let me ask you this. How do you feel when someone respects your boundaries without question? It's refreshing, isn't it? It creates space for trust, for connection, for a relationship that's built on equality rather than control. By protecting your boundaries, you're not only safeguarding your peace, you're setting the standard for the kind of love you deserve. If you're finding these insights helpful, I'd love to hear from you. Like this video and comment number 1 if this message is resonating with you. And don't forget to subscribe, because this journey toward becoming a high-value woman is filled with so much wisdom, and I want you to be here for every step of it. We're building something powerful together, and I'm so glad you're a part of it. 5. Trust your intuition. How often have you ignored that small, persistent voice inside you, the one that whispers when something feels off? That voice, your intuition, is one of the most powerful tools you possess as a high-value woman. It's subtle, quiet, and easily drowned out by logic or the opinions of others, but it's rarely wrong. Learning to trust your intuition isn't just about avoiding manipulation. It's about reclaiming your confidence, your clarity, and your ability to navigate relationships with grace and strength. Intuition isn't magic or guesswork. It's your subconscious picking up on patterns, details, and dynamics that your conscious mind hasn't fully processed yet. For instance, have you ever been around someone who seemed perfect on the surface, but you couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing? Maybe he was charming, attentive, and said all the right things, but his energy didn't feel genuine. That's your intuition nudging you to look beyond the words and actions to see the truth underneath. One of the most important steps in learning to trust your intuition is recognizing how it speaks to you. For some, it's a physical sensation, an unease in the pit of your stomach, or a tension you can't quite explain. For others, it's a mental or emotional response, a nagging thought, a sense of discomfort, or even a moment of clarity that feels like it comes out of nowhere. However it manifests for you, intuition is your body's way of saying, pay attention. So why do so many women struggle to trust their intuition? The answer often lies in doubt and conditioning. Society tells us to be polite, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to avoid making waves when your intuition tells you that someone's behavior isn't sitting right. The temptation is to rationalize it. Maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I should give him another chance. But every time you ignore your intuition, you're silencing the part of yourself that's trying to protect you. A high-value woman knows that her intuition is a gift, not a flaw. She listens to it, honors it, and acts on it without apology. Trusting your intuition also requires giving yourself permission to pause and reflect. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get swept up in the moment, to act before you've had a chance to truly process how you feel. But manipulation thrives in speed and pressure. When someone is rushing you into decisions, whether it's moving too quickly in a relationship or pushing for an answer you're not ready to give, it's a red flag. Taking a step back to evaluate the situation allows your intuition to rise to the surface. It gives you the clarity to make decisions based on what's best for you rather than what someone else wants. Another important aspect of intuition is understanding the difference between fear and instinct. Fear is often loud and chaotic. It's rooted in past experiences, insecurities, or anxieties. Intuition, on the other hand, is calm and steady. It doesn't demand attention, it simply offers guidance. For example, if you've been hurt in the past, you might fear being vulnerable again. But intuition doesn't operate from a place of fear, it operates from a place of truth. Learning to discern between the two takes practice, but the more you tune in, the easier it becomes to recognize when your intuition is speaking. What's fascinating about intuition is how it connects to Stoicism and the concept of Stoic love. Stoicism teaches us to respond to life with wisdom, clarity, and emotional balance. Intuition fits beautifully within this philosophy because it encourages us to observe rather than react, to reflect rather than rush. A Stoic woman doesn't ignore her intuition. She embraces it as part of her inner wisdom. And when it comes to love, intuition helps her recognize when a relationship is grounded in mutual respect versus manipulation. Listening to your intuition also means being comfortable with walking away when something doesn't feel right. This isn't always easy. You might feel the pull to stay, to give more chances, to convince yourself that things will get better. But intuition doesn't lie. If something feels wrong consistently, it's because it is. A high-value woman trusts herself enough to leave situations that don't align with her values, even when it's difficult. She knows that walking away isn't a loss. It's a gain of self-respect and peace of mind. Take a moment to think about the last time you ignored your intuition. What happened? Did you end up in a situation that confirmed your initial feelings? Now think about a time when you trusted your gut. How did that decision impact you? Reflecting on these experiences is a powerful way to reconnect with your intuition and build trust in its guidance. Trusting your intuition isn't about being suspicious or guarded. It's about staying in tune with your own needs and feelings. It's about recognizing that your inner voice exists to protect you, to guide you, and to help you make choices that align with your highest self. As you strengthen your connection to your intuition, you'll find that relationships become clearer, decisions become easier, and your confidence grows. Your intuition is a powerful ally in navigating relationships and avoiding manipulation. It's a reflection of your inner wisdom, your experiences, and your ability to see beyond the surface. By trusting it, you're not only protecting yourself, you're stepping into the full power of your worth and authenticity as a high-value woman. 6. Strengthen your emotional independence. Let's get one thing straight. A high-value woman doesn't rely on someone else to complete her. She knows that true power comes from within, from her ability to create her own happiness, set her own goals, and stand confidently on her own 2 feet. Emotional independence isn't about closing yourself off to love or connection. It's about building a strong foundation so that no one has the power to shake your sense of self. And trust me, When you exude that kind of independence, it's magnetic. The right man will rise to meet you, while manipulators will see that you're untouchable. So how do you strengthen your emotional independence? It starts with self-love. I know it sounds like a cliché, but hear me out. Self-love isn't just about bubble baths and affirmations, though those are great too. It's about recognizing your value, even on the days when you don't feel your best. It's about treating yourself with kindness and compassion, the way you would a dear friend. When you love yourself, you stop seeking validation from others because you already know your worth. And when you know your worth, you won't tolerate manipulation, disrespect, or anything less than the love you deserve. One way to cultivate self-love is by celebrating your own accomplishments. Think about it. When was the last time you took a moment to truly appreciate how far you've come? Whether it's a personal achievement, a career milestone, or simply overcoming a tough day, acknowledging your own strength builds confidence, and confidence is the cornerstone of emotional independence. When you're secure in who you are, you don't need constant reassurance from anyone else. You become your own source of validation. Maintaining your hobbies and friendships is another key to emotional independence. Have you ever noticed how some people, once they get into a relationship, start to lose themselves? Their world becomes centered around their partner, and they neglect the things that used to bring them joy. A high-value woman doesn't let that happen. She nurtures her passions, stays connected with her friends, and keeps living a full, vibrant life outside of her relationship. Why? Because she understands that a healthy relationship isn't about losing yourself. It's about two whole people coming together to create something beautiful. Let's talk about financial independence for a moment too. Money might not buy happiness, but it does buy freedom. The freedom to make choices, to leave situations that don't serve you, and to live life on your own terms. Being financially independent sends a clear message. You don't need someone to take care of you, and you won't tolerate anyone trying to use money as a means of control. A high-value woman takes pride in her ability to support herself, knowing that her independence is a reflection of her strength and resilience. But emotional independence isn't just about external factors, it's also about inner peace. Manipulators thrive on chaos. They want you to feel unsettled, unsure, and dependent on them for clarity. The antidote? Cultivating a sense of calm and balance within yourself. Practices like meditation, journaling, or simply spending time in nature can help you reconnect with your inner self. When your mind is calm and your emotions are centered, you're less likely to be swayed by someone else's attempts to manipulate you. This is where the philosophy of Stoic love comes into play. In Stoicism, emotional independence is viewed as a strength, a way to maintain your equilibrium no matter what life throws at you. Stoic love teaches you to focus on what you can control, your own thoughts, feelings, and actions, and let go of what you can't, other people's behavior. When you approach relationships with this mindset, you're able to love deeply without losing yourself. You're grounded, steady, and unshakable. Emotional independence also empowers you to set and enforce boundaries without fear. When you're not dependent on someone else for your happiness, you don't feel the need to compromise your values to keep the peace. You're free to say no, to walk away, and to prioritize your well-being. This kind of strength is what makes a high-value woman so compelling. She doesn't demand respect. It's given to her naturally because of the way she carries herself. Now let me ask you this. What would it feel like to wake up every day knowing that your happiness doesn't depend on anyone else? To feel free, confident, and fully in control of your own life. That's the power of emotional independence. It's not something that happens overnight, but with intention and effort, it's something you can cultivate. If this message is resonating with you, let me know. Like this video and leave a comment with the number 1 if you're ready to embrace your emotional independence. And don't forget to subscribe. There's so much more to explore on this journey to becoming your most powerful, high-value self. Together, we're building a community of strong, confident women who know their worth, and I'm so grateful to have you here with me. 7. Know when to walk away. One of the hardest yet most empowering decisions a high-value woman can make is knowing when to walk away. It's not easy, is it? There's that lingering hope that things might change, that maybe if you explain yourself one more time or give him just a little more grace, things will turn around. But here's the truth. When someone consistently shows you who they are through their actions, you owe it to yourself to believe them. Walking away isn't about giving up. It's about honoring your self-respect and protecting your peace. Too often, women stay in situations that no longer serve them out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, or fear of being misunderstood. But a high-value woman knows that her worth isn't tied to anyone else's approval or validation. She understands that walking away is an act of courage, not defeat. One of the clearest signs that it's time to walk away is when someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries. You've set the line, you've communicated it clearly, and yet they continue to push. Maybe it's subtle at first, a dismissive comment here, a forgotten promise there. But over time, these small infractions add up, creating a pattern of disrespect. A high-value woman doesn't tolerate this. She knows that if someone truly values her, they'll honor her boundaries without question. Another reason to walk away is when actions don't match words. Manipulators are often skilled talkers. They'll tell you what you want to hear, making promises that sound sincere, but words are meaningless without follow-through. If someone's behavior consistently contradicts what they say, it's a sign that their intentions aren't aligned with their actions. Trust patterns, not promises. A high-value woman understands that love is shown, not just spoken. It's also important to recognize when you're doing all the emotional labor in a relationship. Are you the one always initiating conversations, resolving conflicts, or trying to fix things? Relationships are a two-way street, and if the effort is one-sided, it's not a partnership, it's a drain. A high-value woman doesn't settle for relationships that leave her feeling exhausted and unappreciated. She walks away, knowing that her energy is too valuable to be wasted on someone who doesn't reciprocate. Walking away also becomes necessary when you feel like you're losing yourself. Have you ever looked in the mirror and realized that you don't recognize the person staring back? Maybe you've compromised too much, put your own needs aside, or silenced your voice to keep the peace. A relationship should never cost you your identity. A high-value woman understands that staying true to herself is more important than holding on to a relationship that diminishes her. Another crucial reason to leave is when someone makes you question your worth. Healthy relationships should uplift and empower you, not make you doubt your value. If you're constantly feeling unworthy, insecure, or like you're not enough, it's time to take a step back. A high-value woman knows that her worth isn't up for debate, and she refuses to let anyone make her feel small. Walking away requires strength, and it's not without its challenges. You might feel sadness, disappointment, or even grief, but those feelings are temporary. What's permanent is the self-respect you gain by choosing yourself. Every time you walk away from something that doesn't serve you, you're reinforcing the belief that you deserve better. And that belief is what fuels your growth as a high-value woman. It's also important to remember that walking away doesn't always mean cutting ties in anger or bitterness. Sometimes it's about leaving with grace and gratitude for the lessons learned. Not every relationship is meant to last forever, and that's okay. Even the difficult ones teach you something about yourself, about what you want, and about what you'll never settle for again. A high-value woman sees every ending as an opportunity for a new beginning. Stoic love plays a powerful role in this process. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our reactions, and our choices. Walking away is one of the most powerful choices you can make because it puts the control back in your hands. It's a statement that says, I choose peace, I choose freedom, I choose me. A Stoic woman doesn't waste energy trying to change someone else. Instead, she channels that energy into becoming the best version of herself. So how do you know when it's time to walk away? Trust yourself. Trust your intuition, your observations, and your feelings. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And if you're questioning whether you should leave, chances are you already know the answer. A high-value woman listens to her inner voice and acts with courage, even when the path isn't easy. Walking away isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you reclaim your power, your happiness, and your sense of self. It's a chance to realign with what truly matters to you and to create space for relationships that are rooted in respect, authenticity, and love. Because at the end of the day, a high-value woman doesn't settle for anything less than what she knows she deserves, and neither should you. At the heart of it all, being a high-value woman isn't about perfection, playing games, or proving yourself to anyone. It's about knowing your worth and standing firm in it. It's about seeing manipulation for what it is, setting boundaries with confidence, trusting your intuition, and having the courage to walk away when something doesn't align with the love and respect you deserve. This journey is one of self-discovery, growth, and empowerment, and it transforms not only your relationships, but your entire outlook on life. Think about it. What kind of energy do you want to attract? When you embody your highest self, rooted in self-love, emotional independence, and authenticity, you radiate a kind of power that's undeniable. Manipulators can't touch you because they see that you won't play their games. The people who are meant to be in your life, the ones who see you, respect you, and cherish you, will rise to meet your standard. But remember, this journey isn't just about avoiding the wrong kind of people. It's about creating the space for the right kind of connections to flourish. The kind of connections where mutual respect, trust, and growth take center stage. It's about building a life where your peace, happiness, and sense of self come first, regardless of your relationship status. As we wrap up this conversation, I want to leave you with one simple but powerful reminder. You have the power to design the love life you desire. You are not at the mercy of other people's intentions or actions. By recognizing manipulation, trusting your intuition, and protecting your boundaries, you are stepping into the role of the creator of your own story. And that's a story worth telling. A story of strength, resilience, and unshakable self-worth. If this message resonated with you, take it with you, reflect on it, embody it, and share it with others who need to hear it. Because the more women who embrace their power as high-value individuals, the less room there is for manipulation and disrespect in the world. Together, we can raise the standard, not just for ourselves, but for the relationships we choose to nurture. Here's to you, your journey, and the beautiful, powerful woman you're becoming. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for taking the steps toward the life and love you truly deserve. Remember, you're worth it every single day. Stay strong, stay confident, and always trust in the power of you. Until next time, take care and go live your most extraordinary life.